Good everyone, my name is Graphics. Today we want to analyze another question on first principle in differentiation. Now the question goes like this: y is equals to 1 over root x. Now I want you to understand this. I told you about first principle. We are going to add the increment to the variable y and the increment of the variable x, right? So if you add the variable increase in y, that will give me y plus delta y, right, is equals to 1 all over the root of x plus delta x. So if you watch my previous video, you're going to understand this. Now, I'm going to make delta y the subject of the formula. So I'll be having this. So I have my delta y is equals to 1 all over the square root of x plus delta x, right, equals to, minus, when y comes to this side, it becomes negative. So we have minus y. Now, if you look at this very well, you write this again by saying my delta y, right, is equals to 1 all over the square root of x plus delta x, right, minus, now what is y? Y is equals to what? 1 over what? Root x. So anyway you see y, you put 1 over root x. So I'm going to replace this my y with 1 all over what? Square root of what? X. Now if you look at this, the next thing you can do here is to look for the LCM of this. So looking for the LCM, we say that my delta y is equals to the LCM of this will be square root of x plus delta x, then square root of what? Delta x. So this is the LCM of it. So if you do this way, this multiplied by this, root x times what will give you what? Root x. So give you root x, right? Then root x plus delta x times the other one here will give you what? Root x plus delta x. So I have minus root x plus delta x. Is that okay? Now if you look at this very well, I'm having a square root sign, right? The next thing I can do here is for me to conjugate. So I'm going to rationalize by conjugating. I cannot conjugate the denominator because there is no negative sign that is separating these two, but I can conjugate this. So I'm going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate of what? The numerator, which is this guy here. So my delta y will now give me, I'll write this out back, which will be the square root of x minus the square root of x plus delta x, right, all over the square root of x plus delta x, right, into brackets, open another bracket, which is what, root x. Taking, so I'm going to multiply it with the conjugate of this, and the conjugate of this multiplied by square root of x, so conjugate of it will be what, positive, plus the square root of x plus delta x, all over the same thing, which will be square root of x plus the square root of x plus delta x. Now this is what we have. Alright, now if you see, this is the conjugate of this, so we are going to multiply both of them. So delta y will now give me, now if I open the bracket, if I expand this, I'm going to get what I'll get now. So but if you look at this closely, this numerator here and this here are the same thing, but what separates them is just this is negative and this is positive. Let me say this is the conjugate of this. Because of that, you are going to square this, square the negative part of the conjugate, right? So that means, what I mean is, this will not be the square root of what, x, I'm going to square it, minus the square root of x plus delta x, and I'm going to square it. So that is difference of 2 squared, because if you look at difference of 2 squared here, this will give me back this. If you don't really understand that, you can watch my previous video. So from here, or you just take one after the other, root x times root x will give you root x squared, minus root s times root s plus delta s will give you 1 root s. If you do it that way, you're going to still get the same answer. So this all over, don't expand the denominator, so you rewrite what you have there. So this will be the square root of x plus delta x, right, into bracket, the square root of what, x, multiply by this guy here, which is root x plus root x plus delta x. So this is what we have here. Are we good? Now this root will equate this root, this square will be left with x, right? And this root will equate this square. This square will equate this root will be left with what, s plus delta x. So if I'm to rewrite this again, I'm going to be having delta y equals to this equate this. How? Because if you say root x all square is in as saying x 1 over 2 and this will equate this, we're left with x. So that's why I just did here. Now I'll be left with what, x right, minus, if this equates this, root remove square, it will be x plus delta x will be remaining, right, all over what I have under here. Is that taken? Now this will now be the root of x plus delta x, the root of x plus delta x, close the brackets, times the root of x, right, multiply by the root of x plus the root of x plus delta x. Is that okay? Now, if you expand this, if this minus open this bracket, we are going to be having this, saying that my delta y will now give me the x there, which is this x, minus times x to give you minus x, minus times plus delta x to give you minus delta x, because minus times plus is what? Minus. Everything all over whatever you have down here, which is this, right? So positive x will equate negative x, so we're left with what? Negative delta x. So the delta y will now be equals to negative delta x all over all these guys under here, which will be, now this is what you have, right? Now since we have delta x here, the aim, like I said in my earlier video, is to equate delta x from this right hand side. So the next step is to divide both sides by what? Delta x. So if I divide both sides by delta x, this over this, multiply by what? Either I put my delta x here, or I say 1 over delta x. Let me put it here, multiply by 1 all over what? Delta x. It's still the same thing, right? Because this times this and this times this is the same. So delta x will equate delta x is remaining 1 here, which is minus 1. Abi? So we'll be left with delta y all over delta x will give me minus 1, because that's what is remaining, minus 1 all over, we're left with whatever we have down here, which is this. Now that's what we're having. Now the still aim is there's still delta x here, so this time you're going to set delta x to what? To 0. So you say lim delta x tends to 0, right? Then you put your delta y all over what? Delta x equals to what? You write this guy back again. So this will now be, so this is what you have. When you write it again, so it means anywhere I see delta x, I'm going to put 0. So this will now give me, I'll have minus 1 all over, so this will give me the root of x, right, plus 12 delta x, I'm going to put 0, because anyway I see delta x tends to what? 0. Close the bracket. I'm having the root of x, right? Close the bracket here, then open this. I'm having root x plus the root of x plus 0, because theta s is what? I'm tending it to 0. So this will now be equals to minus 1 all over root x plus 0 is what? We're left with what? Root x, right? Also, I still have my root x here. Into bracket, root x plus 0, you still be left with what? Root x. How good? So this will now give me this. So root x times root x, we will have my minus 1 all over root x times root x give you root x all square, right? Because they're the same, you square it. Then 1 root x plus 1 root x will give me 2 root x. Oh, good. So from here, let's move forward. From here, this will now be equals to minus 1 all over the square. We cancel the roots, we're left with just x. Multiply by the dot is multiplication. We have 2 root x, Abby, and root x is something that's saying s raised power what? 1 all over 2. That is root x. Another way for writing root x is s power 1 over 2. Now, if you apply your indices here, this will give me minus 1 all over. Now, this is like saying s to the power of 1. So I can write it as saying 2 x 1 all over 2 multiplied by x raised power 1. It's the same thing. Because you know what about multiplication? Multiplication is what? Is associative in nature. So now if you look at this equal base, since the base are the same, now recall, we know in our indices that when you have a to the power of m multiplied by a to the power of n, since they have the same base, you are going to add the power, right? So that is what I'm going to apply there, and this will now give me minus 1 all over 2x 1 over 2 plus 1. So 1 over 2 plus 1, you just take one of the way you did this, and this will now give me minus 1 all over 2x 3 over 2, or you say minus 1 all over 2 root x, right, raised to the power of what? 3. Any of them is correct. This is what we call first principle. But if I was told to use power rule, we know that alternatively, if we are not told to use what? First principle, and we are told to use power rule, and we say that my y is equals to what? 1 all over what? Root x. Now the aim of power rule is that what? Whatever you have, you must take it to this form of s power what? N, right? So this is something as saying the y is equals to what? 1 all over what? X 1 over 2. That is another way of writing root x. So we say that my y will be equals to what? 1 times what? S power what? Minus 1 over 2. Because when this one is coming up, the power will have negative. So I can now easily say that my dy over the x, which is something as saying delta y over the delta x, is equals to what? Now I'll write this guy out back. X minus 1 over 2. 1 times this will also will give me this, right? Because I've written my dy over the x everything up here will come down, so I will have minus 1 all over 2 times, including the negative sign, then I'll now subtract 1 from the power. So this will now give me minus 1 all over 2, right, multiplied by what? X minus 3 all over 2. Are we good? Now this isn't as saying everything here all over what? All over 1. So if this minus 3 all over 2 is coming down, my answer here will now give me minus 1 all over 2, right, multiplied by what? 1 all over what? X 3 over 2. You can see that when this guy comes down, the negative will disappear. So 1 times 1, this is minus Abi. So 1 times 1 is 1 all over 2 times give me what? 2x 3 all over 2. So that is my answer. So it's just the same thing, the same answer that we got, right? So this is power rule. What I did earlier is first principle. So if you have find this video helpful, don't forget to click on the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.